Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Conversations with Coco. Today, I'm going to switch my topics up a little bit from fitness because, as I've shared on my page, my goal is not just to talk about fitness, although that's the thing that's at the forefront. Um, there have been some other topics I've wanted to discuss, and there seems to be no better time than now to switch up the topics a little bit drastically than I wanted to before. As we all know, there has been a ton in the news about what's going on with the death of African Americans in communities all across the country. So, today, for this discussion, I'm not coming to you with any research that I Googled. I'm not coming to you. There's not going to be any links in the bio unless it's something that I would encourage you to share, read, or know about. This is not going to be something I'm going to give you my opinion or thoughts on because I've looked at facts and statistics, none of that. I'm simply appealing to everyone's humanity, for lack of a better term, because one of the things that I really try hard to do is to stay away from highly publicizing or having such strong opinions about what's going on in the public eye. Not because I'm afraid or scared, because anybody who knows me knows that's not the case. Um, but I certainly want to be well informed. I do want to have listened to all the facts that are available before I offer any sort of opinion on any situation, whether it directly affects and impacts um, my culture as a Black person in general. Here's something that I thought about today that hit me based on a number of things that happened inside of my household this week that force this whole issue with the death of four Black people within the past 30 days made it entirely hit home. Okay. I'll start by saying this. Uh, I remember like a lot of young women who dreamed about marriage and having a family one day. I always wanted a son. Oh my God. Oh my God. I always wanted a son. I wanted a little brown boy. I wanted him to walk beside me. I wanted to love him. I wanted to teach him and guide him as a mom. I wanted to raise a little boy into a full grown Black man that would be a productive member of society. I wanted to dress him in little suits. I wanted to see how cute he was with his little tie while everybody was around here wanting a little girl and wanting to put her in pink and frilly bows. No, I said, if I have kids, I want me a boy. I got married and I was blessed with a son. And with that son came many challenges just by way of birthing him. And that's a whole other story off topic from where we are. But let me say this. There was at no time in my desire to have a son would I have ever in my life imagined that I would be sitting here today feeling like I feel, that like a lot of moms are afraid for our Black boys and our Black young men, because nobody at the end of the day knows what the future holds, not for you, and definitely not for your children, especially if you have a son. My son came to me this week because, as part of what I do for a living to support my family, I'm out and about in the streets of the towns that I live in and around me. So he came to me to tell me that he was concerned for my safety and didn't want me to go out to go to work. And then he proceeds to share with me that he's even afraid to go outside of our door in our neighborhood just to get some exercise like he's accustomed to do since we've been in quarantine, just to ride his skateboard or just to take a quick walk, because sometimes he likes to create little videos for himself that he shares with his friends. It's something he does to keep him busy in quarantine that he enjoys doing. And now he's afraid to do that in the safety of our own neighborhood. When I tell you how heavy that is for me, I can't even begin to explain to you. On top of that, my son faces additional challenges because he was born with some health issues. Nothing, thankfully, at this point, excuse me, that are life-threatening. But there are certainly things that, as a mom, I have to monitor and I have to keep my eye on, and I have to continue to find ways to support him because I am an Aspie mom to a 15-year-old who has Asperger's syndrome, which is on the autism spectrum. He's what is called high-functioning Asperger's syndrome. And with that, coupled with being a young Black boy, presents a whole other level of challenges that I can't even begin to explain to you. Because as a mom, for a long time now, prior to what I'm mentioning, I absolutely have these fears about my son and where that will take him, because how his brain processes, how he thinks, how he moves, how he interprets things, often extremely, extremely literally. Other people, if they don't know him and they don't know what his diagnosis is and they don't know how that affects the way he thinks and processes, could look at my son and ask him a question and say that he's being defiant and that he's non-compliant and that he doesn't listen and that in fact might even consider it an asshole-like response. When in fact, it's just the way his brain works and processes information because of how Asperger's manifests itself with him. He's 15. He's nearly 5'11". He's taller than me, and I'm tall for a woman. I'm 5'9". So I have to look up to my son and have been since he was about 13 and a half. And what does that look like to someone else as I attempt to not helicopter mom him and send him out into this world, because I can't put my son in a bubble. I can't expect him to live in a bubble. I don't want to teach him to live in a bubble. I don't want to teach him to be afraid. But what I want to teach him to be is cautious. Knowing all the while, I never know how that's going to play out. The older that he gets and the more appropriately independent I teach him to be so that he can be a productive member of society, what I've tried to train him to be as his mother, what I've tried to encourage my male friends who support me to encourage him to be. And what I hope he learns from the time that he spends with his father and what he teaches him to be. Because there are so many dynamics that I can't control, nor do I want to control. I just want to do my part as mom, because I'm never going to say I'm his mom and his dad. I'm not. I am his mother. I teach him to be a productive citizen of the world based on being a mom. His dad and my male friends, that's their responsibility, to teach him how to be a man. Here's what this next leads me to think. As I just mentioned, if we have men who are being killed out here because they've done absolutely nothing wrong. They've made every effort to comply. And they can't even get a fair shake. What does that mean for moms like me with sons like mine who are also trying to teach them to be productive members of society? When autism and autism spectrum disorders are very prevalent or highly diagnosed within the Black community. I can't, and I'm sniffling a lot because honestly, you know, I'm fighting back tears. I know you can see the glaze in my eyes, because as an empath, I am super emotional, and these things, I'm very sensitized to these kinds of situations, particularly where Black people are concerned. And so I have to regulate how much I take in so that I don't become overwhelmed, so that overwhelmness does not transfer over into my son, who I'm trying to love, encourage, support, and in today's climate, keep safe mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and more important, unfortunately, than all of them, physically. And every day I struggle with how to do that appropriately, yet teach him what it is that he needs to know at every growth stage in his life. And what are other mothers like me with children on the spectrum who want to teach them to be independent, to live independently, to have self-esteem, self-worth, self-respect? What does that look like for all of us to do? It's hard, and it's a struggle, and it's a fight that I refuse to give up. It's a fight that I hope no one else watching decides to give up on, because we can't afford to. We can't afford to. Hopefully in the next video that I post related to this, I'll have some information for you all who are watching to be able to support, because what is truly important to me, and what I realized more than a year ago, is we need advocates. We need advocates for brown boys with autism spectrum and related disorders, so that we can support them to be able to live the best life that they can live for themselves, and not wake up every day thinking, if I leave this house, I'm going to have to leave my house in fear, and am I going to make it home at night? This is not a country where we should feel like, if I leave out of my door, am I going to make it back home today, just by the pure and unadulterated fact that I am Black, and that's not something I can control. And number two, that I have a diagnosis that causes me to think differently, knowing everybody's not aware of it, and they don't know how to treat or handle people like me. And they should be. And one of my missions is to do just that, is to try to help educate people, particularly law enforcement individuals. What do you do when people have a diagnosed developmental disability? And that comes in many forms outside of Asperger's syndrome. So I implore you, one, if you don't know already what Asperger's syndrome is, look it up and Google it. Google is your friend. It will tell you everything that you need to know. Get educated, because you will be surprised how many people you know probably are living with it, but they won't tell you because they're afraid of what the diagnosis may label them as. Forget a label. And I censored myself on that because that's not the word that I wanted to use. So I'm just going to end on that note before I get any more emotional than I already am. Thank you for watching. This is Conversations with Coco. I am dedicated to discussing all kinds of topics, regardless of what those topics are. Life, health, fitness, love, relationships, because we're all going through something. We all need support, and we've got to get back to a tribal and a community mentality, because we've lost that. And so much more so now than in any other time before do we need to get back to the sense of that. Conversations with Coco.